You have already read 3 people today. You didn't decide to. You didn't feel it happen. But a verdict was filed on every face you passed. And almost everything the internet has told you about how that works is wrong. Crossed arms don't mean closed. Looking away doesn't mean lying. That famous 93% figure isn't what you think it is. So here's what actually survives the research. 7 things, in the order a professional would use them. The last one flips the whole video around, and it's the one that will bother you. Start with an uncomfortable fact about your own speed. Researchers showed people faces for 1/10 of a second, then took them away. That's less time than a blink. It was still enough to produce a judgment about how trustworthy that person was. Then they gave other people unlimited time with the same faces. The verdicts barely changed. What had changed was confidence. More time didn't make people more accurate. It made them more certain. A separate line of research looked at what psychologists call thin slices, tiny clips of behavior, often under 30 seconds. In one of the most famous versions, students watched silent 30-second clips of teachers they had never met. Their ratings from those few seconds lined up with the ratings real students gave those teachers after an entire term. Across many studies, stretching the clip out longer didn't improve accuracy much at all. So the first rule of reading people isn't a technique. It's a warning. Your first impression arrives before you've gathered any evidence, and then everything you notice afterwards gets bent to defend it. Reading people well starts with catching yourself doing that. Now the part nobody wants to hear. You've been told that liars look away, fidget, touch their nose, cross their arms. Researchers gathered hundreds of studies on how well people actually detect lies and pooled the results. The average accuracy came out around 54%. Guessing gets you 50. That number barely moves for police officers, judges, or customs agents. Confidence goes up. Accuracy doesn't. And gaze aversion, the single most repeated tell in the world, turned out to be one of the weakest signals in the entire dataset. While we're here, the 93% claim. You've heard that words are only 7% of communication. That came from 2 small studies in the 1960s about how people judge feelings when the tone and the words disagree. The researcher himself spent years telling people to stop quoting it as a general rule. It never was one. So clear the shelf. The catalog of tells you memorized is mostly folklore. What replaces it is smaller, slower, and much harder to sell as a life hack. It also works. Every professional who reads people for a living uses the same 2-step method, and it has nothing to do with a list of gestures. Step 1. Watch the person when nothing is at stake. How fast do they normally talk? Where do their hands normally sit? How much do they normally look at you? That's their baseline. It's personal. Some people fidget constantly and are the most honest person in the room. Step 2. Watch for the moment the baseline breaks. A person who talks with their hands going suddenly still. Someone quick to answer taking 2 seconds on one question. The signal was never the gesture. The signal is the change. And here's the discipline most people skip. A break tells you something happened. It does not tell you what. Stress looks like guilt. Embarrassment looks like guilt. Being asked about something painful looks like guilt. So you don't conclude. You get curious, and you ask a second question. If the same break happens again in the same place, now you have something worth noticing. There is one signal that holds up better than the face, and almost nobody watches it. The face is the most rehearsed part of the body. We spend our whole lives training it to be polite. Nobody trains their feet. So when someone wants to leave a conversation, their upper half usually keeps facing you while their feet quietly rotate towards the exit. Same with a group. Watch who turns their whole torso when a new person joins, and who only turns their head. The full turn is an invitation. The head-only turn is a holding pattern. Distance works the same way. Every person carries an invisible bubble, and it changes size depending on who you are to them. Step slightly closer than usual and watch. A small step back, a shifted shoulder, a hand placed between you. That's the bubble reporting. None of this is mind reading. It's just watching the parts of a person that nobody bothered to teach how to lie. Now stop watching and start listening, but not to what you'd expect. Researchers who study language found that the revealing words aren't the big ones. They're the tiny ones nobody chooses on purpose. Pronouns are the clearest example, and the finding is the opposite of what almost everyone guesses. Most people assume the confident one in the room says I the most. In the data, it's the other way around. The lower status person in a conversation uses I far more often because attention flows upward. When you're the one being evaluated, your attention sits on yourself, and your pronouns follow your attention. You can test this on your own messages. Look at how you write to someone you're trying to impress, and how you write to someone who's trying to impress you. There's a second one. Listen for how someone describes a group they belong to. We finished it. They finished it. That switch between we and they tends to track how much a person actually feels part of something. Big words are chosen. Small words leak. This one is the closest thing to an actual test you can run inside a conversation. When people are getting along, they start copying each other without noticing. Posture, speed, the way they hold a cup. Researchers call it the chameleon effect, and they showed it works in both directions. People who were subtly copied by a stranger rated that stranger as more likable and the conversation as smoother, without ever noticing the copying. Which gives you a quiet test. Change something small about how you're sitting, then keep talking. If the other person drifts into the same shape over the next 30 seconds or so, you're in rapport. If nothing happens, you're not. One warning, because this one gets abused. Copying someone on purpose, obviously, feels like being mocked. If you're going to use it at all, use it slowly and at half strength. Better still, use it as a reading, not a technique. The last real signal is the one that takes the longest to spot and tells you the most. In any long conversation, most topics get raised once and dropped. But there's usually one that keeps reappearing. It surfaces, gets laughed off, and comes back 20 minutes later attached to something unrelated. Unfinished business is stickier in the mind than finished business. Psychologists have studied that pull since the 1920s. Something the person hasn't resolved keeps pulling the conversation back to itself. So stop tracking what they said and start tracking what they return to. It's usually raised casually, almost always with a joke on top of it, almost never labeled as important. That's the whole tell. The important thing is rarely announced. It's just the thing that won't stay down. Here's the part that flips the video, and the reason this channel is called what it is. In 1948, a psychologist gave his students a personality test and then handed each of them a personal profile of their own results. He asked them to rate how accurate it was. The average came back above 4 out of 5. Every single student had been handed exactly the same paragraph. He'd assembled it out of an astrology column. It works because the statements are built to be true of almost everyone, while sounding like they were written about one person. That's the engine underneath every psychic, every fortune teller, and a large share of the personality tests you've taken online. And it's the reason someone can seem to read you perfectly within a minute of meeting you. So the defense is one question, and it costs nothing to ask. Would this also be true of the person standing next to me? If the answer is yes, you weren't read. You were flattered. Which is the honest summary of this entire video. Reading people isn't collecting tells. It's noticing a baseline, catching a change, and staying humble about what the change actually means. Do that, and you'll be right more often than the person quoting body language rules at you. You'll also be wrong sometimes, and you'll know it. If that was worth 10 minutes, subscribe. One of these every week. Read people, not minds.